afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Andy Serling, soon to be joined by David Aragona from the Daily Racing Forum. Talking Horses, 8-race card today. David and I, if we have some time at the end of the show, we'll talk about some of the races from yesterday. We saw a nice performance here. I know Doris and David liked of Linda Rice's that got the job done. The Withers got an 86 buyer. Tis the Law, very impressive. And I think Tis the Law, at least for the East Coast horses, I'm not familiar enough with the West Coast horses, but at least what I've seen in the East Coast, he should be the favorite, whatever that means right now for the Derby. Anyhow, head over to NYRA Bets if you're not a member. Sign-up bonus, we'll match up at $200. The promo code is Big A. We're also offering a bonus at Fairgrounds. If you bet $100 or more through the app, and the app only, we'll get a $10 bonus. Any quick thoughts on yesterday? Linda's horse seems to be an improving horse. I'm sure Dylan's happy, Davis is happy to be riding him, but he doesn't have to worry about a workout.
No.
Because you get a full workout riding that horse.
Yes.
You had noted it when talking about his last race.
No, Dylan did his homework. He watched he said it in, I was reading Dave Grenning's article. He watched the races and knew, I've got to keep after this horse the entire race and get him out of the kickback because he doesn't like it. You could see going into the clubhouse turn, he threw his head up as soon as he got in behind those horses. But, I mean, he just keeps running. I mean, it's hard to ride a horse for an entire race and get him to keep responding, but that horse does.
He could be everybody's Belmont horse if you're not careful.
No, that's Portos.
He does. Right. That Portos didn't run badly.
No.
You know, I don't disagree. And I think, you know, he's making his third start. He's obviously a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think for a third start, it was a very good effort. And I'm glad to see Linda with a theoretical Triple Crown type horse.
I saw Linda Rice in the article after the race in Daily Racing Forum saying they might wait for the Wood Memorial with that horse.
I'm sure she will.
I feel like that's the kind of horse you'd want to get the most experience possible because he's still really green.
I don't disagree. I think one of the issues is she's probably thinking, I don't want to turn back to a one-turn mile and do it. I'm not sure it really matters that much. But regardless, you know, I'm glad to see that horse. And the horse I like, Monday Morning Quarterback, I don't think he would have won. He was second best.
Not the right trip.
Yeah, not getting left on horses like that does them no favor. But anyhow, we've got lots to talk about today. We'll see if we have some time at the end to touch on some other thoughts. Race number 1. I know you and I agree a great deal today. We'll take a look at Cause I Said So's debut down at Gulfstream. And at the end of the day, I like the fact the horse is cutting back in distance. And I don't know. I just thought this horse might be the right horse in here, switching to Michelle Nevin.
Yeah, the big thing about it is it looks like he took a step backwards last time. If you watch that entire race, he did not get the right trip that day. It's hard to see the start given the angle they show those 1 mile starts
it's so annoying.
But I mean, it's obvious that this horse breaks really slowly. He was breaking from the rail. He got pushed in after that. He was way at the back of the pack.
Out in the middle of the racetrack.
Then the jockey took him to the outside. He was like in the 6th path for the entire turn. It was just, it was a weird trip.
He also made a run.
Yeah,
and you can sort of see it in the running line that he gets within 5, 6, 7 lengths in there. And it really is clear when you watch the replay. It's not as though he was just evaporating in the back of the pack.
He did a little running.
I agree. And the other thing is, I'm not thrilled with the 3 First Degree. It seems, I know Jonathan Thomas had a couple winners. His horse ran poorly the other day. I'm not sold on this horse. I know he's dropping, but he just did absolutely no running last time. And I know the race didn't set up well for him, but he just did no running.
He's faced better horses. I mean, that's the reason to like him. He faced Shotsky in his debut at Laurel, and then last time out he was in that really tough cost basis race. I agree, he really didn't lift a hoof that day, but maybe he doesn't want to go a mile. I think the turn back is going to help him. The dropping class obviously helps him. The only problem is, for these connections, he's going to be a pretty short price.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather fool around with the 1 Fulfill for the Asmussen barn coming back off a synthetic race. You don't see a lot of these Asmussen running synthetic.
Well, you know why they probably did it? Because they bought him off a really impressive workout, 21 flat over the synthetic track at OBS. So Asmussen, even though he doesn't like to run on synthetic, he probably thought, if this horse has shown nothing on the dirt, at least we'll try the synthetic. I mean, I don't know. This horse looks like he's been a big disappointment.
Well, he's definitely been a disappointment. I don't think he looks like one. He's so far, even if he wins today, he's a big disappointment. He's running for 50. Sure. They paid a lot more at the 2-year-old sale for him. Race number 2. I decide if you can't beat him, join him. And I just didn't want to put 2 Graces on top. So I've got your horse, Lady Cat, on top, who's more lightly raced.
They're all coming out of the same race. Neither of us like that race very much. The winner of that race, Our Ticket, I believe she's running later today. She is not very good, but nobody did that much running behind her, and all the others, they just have speed figures that don't suggest they're about to break their maiden. So it's one of these three horses. Two Graces ran the best race. I mean, I don't think if there's any question she ran a better race than Lady Cat last time, because Two Graces did have some trouble. I thought her rider just kind of stuck her on the rail. There were some speeds, some long shots tiring in front of her, and she just lost momentum at a critical point in the race. When you're in a field of bad horses, you don't want to get stuck behind the two worst horses in the race. You want to avoid them at all costs. And Lady Cat, at least her rider kept her outside, and she just gradually built momentum. She might want to go even farther than a mile because she just has no speed at all. But Luis Cardenas, the apprentice, is riding really well, and hopefully he can get this filly to run for him.
I think, and I have no knock on him because I think he's a terrific rider. And we've been talking about him when he had his 10-pound bug. He was an unusual 10-pound bug rider that showed real poise out there. I think if he has a chink in his armor at this point is he might at times need to be a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
And this is a horse, I don't know, maybe there's nothing he can do with this horse, but maybe if he can find a way to get her a little bit more in the game, there may be nothing he can do. And I don't mean to be overly critical of him because I'm a big fan and think he has a big future here. I mean, it's amazing how well he's ridden for a rider. I mean, a 10-pound bug rider, you don't see riders as cool as he is.
Well, the thing that really makes him stick out for me is he gets horses to run for him at the end of races that typically shouldn't be finishing, like that filly Willoway yesterday, who he just got to shut off in the early going when she was a one-dimensional speed, and she turned back the closers at the end of that race. I mean, the horses run for him like they're actually carrying 10 pounds less, and then you don't always see that with apprentices.
And Kendrick, and I don't knock Kendrick when Kendrick's race riding. I'm all for race riding, but Kendrick shut the door on the kid, and he didn't panic at all.
No.
He just got her right to the inside, and we both liked her yesterday. I remember seeing the beginning of the race when the long shot ran off, and I said, well, another bad pick because she just run nowhere, and I agree. I mean, it's the only time in her career that she's ever really rated. Race number 3, I think you and I had the same opinion. Race number 3. Here's Fort McHenry breaking his maiden down at Gulfstream Park West 2 back, and he got this good figure, and he looked very promising. Though you look at the figure of 83, Timeform US has that race considerably slower. Todd tried him in a stake. He was abysmal, and he rushes him up here to run him for 50. And it's almost like PLETCHER's sort of saying, I know we paid over $1 million for this guy. If we can get somebody for 50, take him for 50 now. Let's get somebody to take him for 50. He may well win this race. I'm not way against him, but I just wanted somebody else.
Yeah, a few things to note about that race. You see that 22-2 opening quarter in the published form.
It's inaccurate.
It's actually 24-2. You can even see it in that video replay. They just transcribed it incorrectly, so Equibase should fix that.
It's also obviously inaccurate, which
yes,
it annoys me when there are obvious errors like that.
Yeah.
Because you should see them.
Yes. It's a discrepancy that you see regularly between the buyers and the Timeform US speed figures. And I'm not saying that one is right and the other is wrong, but at Gulfstream Park West, the buyers seem really high, and the Timeform US numbers are just routinely about 15 points lower than every buyer that I see there. And for my money, I don't see those Gulfstream Park West big figures getting repeated, even at Gulfstream Park. So I'm a little skeptical of them. I know the second place finisher came back out of that race and ran the same buyer next time, but it feels like, to me at least, he really improved winning the stakes next time. He didn't run the same race.
He clearly improved.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
So Fort McHenry, everything you said about the pedigree, I agree. This drop in for 50 seems a little hasty. The fact that they couldn't wait to geld him after that last race. This horse, there are some red flags here.
The Todd PLETCHER numbers, and we talk about this a lot with First Time for a Tag, he wins at a relatively high percentage, a little under 25%. He's running even money shots, so obviously it's a big loser. This is not a knock on Todd. This is actually says there is a reason when Todd PLETCHER's barn drops these horses.
And the other thing that I noticed is Todd PLETCHER, kind of like Chad Brown, is one of these traders where when his horse shows up in the entries, they have workouts every 7 days like clockwork. And this horse has missed 2 workouts in the past month. That's a red flag for me with Todd.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't have any confidence in the horse we both picked. I was laughing when you picked the horse because I was thinking, I know David's going to come up with some alternative. We'll see if he comes up with mine. Obviously, My Sacred Place isn't particularly quick. There are some good numbers for Jason Servis stretching out. I don't know. Did you put them up also?
Yes.
You did. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially with 3-year-olds stretching out in distance. This is not this horse's first time stretching out. He tried a turf route at Saratoga. I don't really care about that because he obviously doesn't handle the turf. This is his first time going long on the dirt. And this horse, he's hard to like based on his form. But what I will say about his last race is I didn't think he got the right trip that day, because that was one of those sloppy tracks where I don't know if the rail was dead, but most horses were doing the best running outside, and Jose Lezcano just stuck him right down in that one path for the entire stretch drive, trying to close inside of a tiring horse, and I just never liked that kind of trip in the stretch. So if he can get him outside this time, feels like the kind of horse that shouldn't mind the mile distance.
And I thought he could move up a little bit and he could get the job done, because I know Forever Wicked can win, but I don't know. He got a very fortunate pace trip 2 races back.
Yeah, somebody can show the pace projector for this race. There's no speed in this race, and I guess Fort McHenry is loose, but I don't know how much of an advantage that's really going to matter for him. I mean, you see Forever Wicked's shown second on the pace projector. He has no speed at all, so that just speaks to the fact that there's just not a lot of pace in this race.
And leave it up for 1 second. I mean, one of the reasons I love the pace projectors, I like anything in handicapping that gets your brain working.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at this race, it's reasonable to suggest my sacred place, if we're right about this horse, there is no way this horse is going to be back in a distant third or fourth. This horse is going to be right in the game. Now, maybe it's just a bad pick by us, which is fine, but I think if we're right, this horse will not be compromised by the pace. When Jason Servis is live, his horses show speed.
Yes, but the pace projector
Stretching
obviously is
out.
based on pace figures, and this horse is coming out of very slow races, so
I don't.
But I agree.
I'm not disagreeing with the pace projector.
Yes.
I think you have to look at the pace projector. It doesn't mean you're going to be right,
No.
but you have to intellectualize anything you're doing. It's like the discussion about the speed figures between Craig's figures and Andy's figures. We're not suggesting that one is better than the other one, but it can never hurt to look at 2 different people's opinions and try to surmise what you think about them and why they're different. That's all. I mean, it's a game about your own opinions, but evaluating opinions and different factors. Right and wrong, yeah, you find out in the racetrack sometimes, but one of the interesting things about the game is trying to continuously answer the questions.
Yeah, and when you see something that makes you, that you disagree with, it just gets you thinking and makes you either change your mind or find better reasons for why you have that opinion.
Or adapt your thinking in general, which I think is important. Race number 4, I don't have a lot to say about race number 4. I knew you'd pick Teletype. She's probably going to win. You like her last race more than I do. I didn't think she's that much running, but no doubt it was against 1,000 times better horses than she faces today.
Yes, I mean, it's hard to, for me at least, to watch that December 13th race and not say that Teletype ran a better race than Moonheist, who she finished ahead of.
I agree.
And Teletype, she didn't show the speed that I think you might have expected getting back on the dirt, but also she got shuffled back significantly on the backstretch. She didn't break that alertly, not that she broke slowly, but then she got into this weird position where Jose Lezcano had to steady her back, lost about a length or 2 of position, just at a critical point in the race when you want to be going forward. And after that, she made a run to get back in the race, and she still beat Moonheist, who got a better trip.
Except the difference between those trips, and I'm not going to argue your point as a generality, but the difference is that Moonheist is probably better if she can get to the front.
Sure.
And in this race, Moonheist is supposed to be able to get to the front.
You could say the same about Teletype.
Well, I think she'll be sitting well.
Yeah.
I think Teletype's way the horse to beat.
Yeah.
I'm not having a big argument. I also think she's going to be less than 8-5.
She probably
I think she probably should be. I just thought that Moonheist had a chance to run the better race if she's able to get to the front.
Yeah.
That was my only opinion here. I thought one of those 2 horses would win, and the 3 Cairo Queen was
The
a
thing
distant
about
third.
Moonheist is that I picked her last time. I thought she had a really good chance to wire the field that day, and she was just dreadful. That was not a good field.
Might have
and
just been a bad pick
She
by
just
you.
collapsed. It might have been a bad pick by me.
Might be a bad pick
yeah.
by me today.
This seems like a tougher, well, I don't know if it's a tougher field.
Then the last one,
Yeah,
the
it's hard
last
to
race
say.
was a very strange race she's coming out of. Kathy's Cause second. Really, you got a lot of heart.
You know what? She's
coming fast enough, I
She was
know.
coming out of that Look Both Ways race, and Look Both Ways came right back and beat a field just like this next
Yeah.
time out. So
Well, I don't know about that.
she
That
beat-
was
she
a
beat
4-horse field where
Wisconsin Knight.
Wisconsin Knight
Yeah.
stopped on the turn.
But-
so I wouldn't say it was a field just like this.
at least Kathy's Cause is relatively consistent in a race where the others just seem like real
I hear
wild
you.
cards.
I hear you. Race number 5 coming up. Race number 5. This race kept me from making my final picks for the entire
too.
card for 2 days because, and we'll take a look at Chief Know-It-All and then we'll show a trainer stat afterwards. There is no way on earth you can bet you're going to bet Chief Know-It-All in this race. He's also going to pay $740 when he wins this race, and a lot of us are going, we're such jerks because he so overlays this field on paper. It's not even funny, but it's a horse that Danny Gargan was dangling out there for short money, and Danny Gargan is far from an idiot with these horses. And Danny, just kept saying, if you want to claim this horse, he's yours. And a low percentage trainer. And I'm not trying to be critical, but the guy was 1 for 42 last year. Claimed a horse, and claiming from Danny Gargan, I mean, And we've seen it. We talked about it with those Midwest horses. When they took the Midwest horses from Danny, none of them won.
Nope.
And they started winning again when they went back to Danny's barn. And you can't ignore these things.
No, and the real worry with this horse is that he's been running speed figures that suggest he should be in 35, 40 claimers.
Of course.
And Danny Gargan's been keeping him these 12, 5, 16 claimers, like just, I'll get the purse, but somebody take him off my hands because I don't know if he's going to be around tomorrow. And I don't know. I just cannot trust this horse to hold his form.
I couldn't agree more. The problem was I still couldn't make a pick. And I know that the 2 Monteleone is a better horse on a wet track. I don't disagree with that. It's a rare horse it is. But he has run some faster figures. I don't know. I watched his last race. You know, it's like he was there early. The jockey just dragged him back out of the race, and then he rushed up. He gets a rider change to Kendrick, who might get him in the game a little bit more. I don't love him. I'm just guessing with somebody here. I didn't like anybody.
When I first looked at this race, I kind of said to myself, all right, well, there are issues with the 3 main horses that people are going to look at, so I guess I've got to pick one of Linda Rice's 2 horses. Just which one do I want? And as I kept trying to make the case for each of them, I was like, I don't like either of these Linda Rice horses. Monteleone, I never like when Linda Rice is just steadily dropping these horses in class. She kept this horse away from the NYRA circuit for a long time. I don't like that either. And also, I don't think he wants to go a mile. I know he has that one freakish performance in the slop going a mile last year when he was in amazing form. But his other mile races, to me, don't say that he wants to go this far. I'm not a big fan of this horse. And Autostrad has just been beating up on much weaker company. I don't see how he wins this race.
I don't disagree. I'm going to hope that Monteleone, I agree with everything you said about him. I'm not going to sit here and defend the pick.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know else to take. I mean, you're taking a stab with a horse that sucked up as a race was collapsing on a sloppy track.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm landing on kind of a wacky horse because I can't take Shadow Rider. I didn't send in the stats, but Rudy Rodriguez, 150 to 300 day layoffs on dirt. He's winning at 10% with a 36-cent ROI. How
about the 4-month to 8-month stat? In Roots,
it's not good.
He's 1 for 18 with a 41-cent ROI.
I mean, the horse to beat is Orpheus, but he's not really a winning type. He'll be there at the end.
And his win was totally phony.
So I said to myself, who's kind of going to get ignored in this race? And hardcore folklore, do I love this horse? No. But 2 back, he ran a speed figure that puts him squarely in the mix. I know we got a good setup that day,
yes, he did.
And the pace collapsed, and he just sucked up for second. But it's interesting to me that if you go way back in this horse's career, they started him, he was in Tom Morley's barn, he was a Donegal racing horse. They started him immediately in route races because he's a son of Curlin out of a Giants Causeway mare, and he just wasn't good and went badly off form for a low percentage trainer at the fairgrounds. And he got good again, or I shouldn't say that, he started to be successful in cheap sprint races, and he just has gotten pigeonholed as a sprinter. What's to say he doesn't want to go farther as a son of Curlin? So they're finally stretching him out. He'll be closer to the pace on going a mile, so hopefully he can improve a little bit, but he might not have to that much.
I'm not going to argue your thinking. I didn't particularly like him, but you make some valid points, and he's going to be a price in a race where I'm not knocking anybody, except for Chief Know-It-All. And if he wins, he wins, but you're supposed to bet against him. Race number 6, the only race with scratches that mattered, you and I picked both horses that were scratched here. And we end up with Puffery, and we'll take a look at Puffery running second behind Hayfield. This is Hayfield's last race and Puffery's last race. Puffery showed last time when you and I liked Forgotten Hero and we were life and death to hold on that Puffery really doesn't want to win. He ran actually well against Hayfield, and I think you and I shared an opinion here. Hayfield feels very unreliable. I didn't like this effort. He should have beaten Puffery like a drum in here.
Yeah. Hayfield took this race over at the 8th pole like she was going to go on and win by 3 lengths, and she's just hanging a little bit at the end of this race. It's not even like Puffery's coming back at her because the whole field is gaining on her at the end. And it just feels to me like Hayfield, they're just keeping her at the same level. They're not going to move her up in class because she's not going to be competitive. And Linda Rice claims her back. I know she's done well for Linda before, but I saw this stat that interested me just over the past year. I think we assume that Linda Rice does great with every single claim at Aqueduct, but over the past year, it's better in routes.
Well, she stinks. I had no idea how bad she was.
In dirt sprints over the past year, she's just had a drought. I mean, maybe this is just an aberration. I'm sure it's going to even out over time because if you look at 5-year stats, the ROI is not positive, but it's much stronger than this. But this horse is going to get bet down to probably odds-on in this race, and to me, she's not an odds-on favorite over Puffery.
I agree. You know, I think the inclination was to want to, I think we both probably looked at Prairie Fire and said, well, it's classic Linda Rice. The horse has been running well and improving, but she's just so much slower than these horses.
I mean, we saw how Collegeville Girl and Quietude did yesterday. They're just not very good. Right. And furthermore, Prairie Fire had a real pace advantage that day. So I couldn't make the case for her.
Collegeville Girl may have one of been the great favorites to bet against the entire.
Yeah, you were totally right about her.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole point also was that the other horse, whether you like Quietude or not, just ran a lot better last time. Race number 7, the Busana. The Busana's points, Kentucky Oaks, right? I think it's 17 points. I'm looking forward to this race, and one of the reasons I'm looking forward to is seeing how Harvey's Little Goyle does. And we'll take a look at Harvey's Little Goyle. It's amazing how Persisto is in the PPs of everybody here. It's kind of cool, actually, and she's in here as well. She's going to see a lot of her old friends. You and I talked about her a lot before her last race. She actually ran very well in her debut on the turf. They put her on dirt. Yes, she got a perfect trip, but she really exploded. Yeah,
I was reading Dave Grenning's article about this race with some quotes from Bill Mott, and he was saying, I just put her on the turf because I saw everyone's running the American Pharoahs on the turf, so I thought I should too. But she trained well on the dirt.
He's so full of it. Bill, I like when Bill plays dumb.
So she had trained well on the dirt, apparently, and he put her on the dirt last time, and seems like dirt's probably her preferred surface. Her
turf race was actually very good.
Yes.
If this horse doesn't pan out in the dirt, Bill can put her back on the turf.
She could, but I liked that she showed a lot more tactical speed on the dirt last time. That's always a good sign when a horse switches surfaces. She was right in behind those leaders, ready to pounce at any point. Junior Alvarado swung her to the outside at the top of the stretch, and I really liked the way she finished off that race. She's got some real stamina breeding on the dam side. The dam is by Tappet, and she's a half-sister to I'll Have Another, the Kentucky Derby Preakness winner, as well as Golden Award, who's a multiple stakes winning router for Bill Mott. So feels like Harvey's Little Goyle is going to relish the mile and an 1/8 distance, and I just think if she improves at all on that debut or even runs back to it, she's simply the horse to beat.
I'll Have Another will be my favorite answer to a trivia question. And I wonder when and if it'll ever change. When was the last time a Derby winner ran the Hopeful?
Yep.
It's so
beaten by like 24
classic
lengths.
Empire, frankly, if he wasn't so unlucky.
Yes.
There's an argument he could have won it. I don't disagree. I'm a little worried that she's going to end up being even money in here. And I'm not sure she shouldn't be a very short price. I'm not knocking the line at all. She just has the feeling like the kind of horse everybody's going to zero in on, and maybe correctly so. We'll take a look at Water White being Persisto in a maiden race that ended up. This is the one that got the fig reduced, and she got a perfect trip when she did it. I'm not wholly convinced that she's a 1 1/8 horse, and I wonder if Rudy thinks that too. But her race in the Demoiselle was not bad.
No. If you go watch the start of the Demoiselle, because I think it's a ride that Manny Franco might have liked to have back, because she broke a length, an entire length on top of Lake Avenue, who was outside of her, and rather than going forward as Lake Avenue did up under Junior Alvarado, Manny Franco, it seemed like the instructions or his plan coming out of the gate was just to take back, not show speed, and he dragged her back. She ended up getting hung out 4 or 5 wide around the clubhouse turn, whereas Lake Avenue got over, despite breaking a length slower than Water White. If the trip had worked out differently for Water White, she could have been in the trifecta that day.
I completely agree. And, I think it's a question, I'm not knocking Manny, who I have a world of respect for, but I think it's more, and it probably is more instructions in general of making this plan before the race, because there's no question that the Demoiselle field looked to have a ton of speed on paper. But it didn't materialize that way, and you got to be looking over your shoulder and know that one of the main speeds is to your right. And when you look over and she's not there and you break, you got to be adjusting, and it's like what Richie says, getting your position going forward. If she had done that, she wouldn't have won, but she would have been a lot closer.
And since this is another 1 1/8 race, that's something you have to mention. If you're on the outside in these races and you break well, just play the break and go with it. Otherwise, you're going to get compromised going into that clubhouse turn.
And I think it's important for Rudy and Vargas to understand here that you're not gunning to the lead, but take advantage of your inside position because you hit that turn so quickly, you cut the corner, it puts you in the race. So even though the pace projectors are much far, not that far back,
she'll be in third.
But she could be right there without, just let her get into the race, don't take her back. One of the words I want to show was 50 Shades of Green. Did you have an opinion on her on the outside?
So she had been entered in the Demoiselle. She was scratched for the temperature, I believe. So she missed a couple of races too, because I think they wanted to run to the fairgrounds, and John Service was saying he couldn't get a flight down there. So she's been ready to go for a while. She looked pretty good when she won this race over Persisto. Surprised that she didn't come down this day, given some of the DQs we see.
They only take Harvich horses down that do this.
Oh, okay. She's been improving steadily with every start. Seems like one that's going to have no trouble getting the 1 1/8 distance. She just has to get a little bit faster.
For a second?
Yeah.
I felt exactly the same way. And, I respect Persisto. I'm kind of a fan. You've got Ankle Monitor in there third. I kind of think Ankle Monitor's a really neat horse.
She's a funny horse because she's a little bit slower slower than these, but she feels like one of these grinding types that's just going to keep coming at the end of her races, and she'll be the biggest price on the board here by some ways, and she can get a piece of this.
I don't disagree. Race number 8, closing out the card. Want to show some of the replay of the Quick Flash race. Quick Flash may be the most moto horse of all time.
Yeah.
Quick Flash ran extremely well last time out. It's the number 6 horse in this race, and it really stumbles. You don't really get to see it that much. The pan is sort of taken out of the race. And I know the pace was quick in here, but this was a day, I think, that the rail was very good and speed was a real edge in the racetrack. I thought that Quick Flash was against the track, and we'll show the rest of the race. We'll just show the whole race, and we'll talk about it. He was taken completely out of the race, and no doubt, Bulwark ran very well to win. See, I don't like Freudian Fate. I thought Freudian Fate had a very good trip in this race.
Did.
And Bulwark, I mean, Quick Flash ran just so much better.
And it's not like Dylan Davis rode him in a fashion so that the pace would have helped him, because he gets him right back into the race by the time they're passing the half-mile pole. I mean, he makes a big backstretch move. It looks like, for a second at the quarter pole, like he's going to swoop past the entire field because he was moving so early. And of course, he just flattened out because you can't move into a quick pace like that prematurely and keep going. But I agree. Quick Flash, he finished ahead of Freudian Fate by a length, and I thought he ran much more than a length better than that horse.
Right, and I thought Eric gave Freudian Fate a perfect ride here. I mean, he got to the inside. He'll angle a little bit off of it, but he saved ground behind the pace, and he's had nothing. I mean, Quick Flash's performance was just otherworldly better than his performance in this race. So for me, my feeling was, I'll take Quick Flash, and if I'm going to use another horse, I'd rather use a fuzzy like Kingfish, because it is kind of odd that Linda cuts back Kingfish in this race, simply because he was plotting going a mile. Why would she think he'd be effective going shorter?
I would imagine she's getting frustrated with this horse because she thought he was a turf horse and he wasn't. She thought
maybe he was a good horse and he wasn't.
Stretching out on the dirt, and he didn't want to do that either. He ran maybe a little bit better, but not as much better as you would have expected. So now it's back to what he did first time out. I just don't see how this horse has the speed to really be competitive against these, but maybe he'll improve this time.
You have a stat for Kid Doro, a horse that just looks woefully slow. I know it's Jason Service, and sometimes you're supposed to just throw him in. This is a funny stat.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this horse. He's kind of a weird one. This is a really good stat for Service, and it's not just turf horses, because on the dirt he's 6 for 12, narrowing this down. It's weird that he ran a New York bred for a tag at Monmouth during the summer last year. That's probably not a good sign. This horse does have pedigree. His dam was a stakes-winning sprinter. I don't know if he's turned it around in the past 6 months or so, but he'll have had to. Yeah,
I agree. I watched his race hoping I saw something, but, I mean, other than the fact that the horse that finished first in there wired the field. Quickly on 'Tis the Law, I mean, I'm a fan. I'd like to see him do well. I'm happy to see Manny Franco on a Triple Crown contender and Barkley tag as well. But I thought he just ran very well yesterday. I still think he has to answer the question of how far ultimately he's going to be at his most effective, but so far, so good.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to like. They obviously rode him in a fashion where the instructions were to give him that education, and I think they accomplished the goal, and that was the right race to do it in, because he just laid over that field. He has that really impressive turn of foot, and he's really keen early in his races. He wants to go. They've got to get him to settle down a little bit, and I also question the distance because he hasn't really shown that that grinding style that we've seen from a horse like Thousand Words who went out in California, who seems like he wants to go even farther. But of the Derby contenders that I've seen, he's been the most impressive.
No, I don't disagree. Disappointing Green Light Go's comeback race. Untitled, the horse was one of his debut. He was eliminated at the start.
Yeah.
I actually think he ran okay when you consider the dynamics of the race. As far as Green Light Go, he was bad. But sometimes horses don't seem to run in the dirt down at Gulfstream, so I don't want to condemn him.
He didn't have the kind of trip you would have thought he'd get.
Yeah, I want him to do well. I agree. I don't know how he got shuffled back and out of position. He is kind of a big horse, so maybe he needs to be in a better position. I'm not giving up on him and hope he can turn it around. Anyhow, head over to NYRA Bets if you're not a member of NYRA Bets. And David, thank you very much. As always, $200 match bonus. Use the promo code Big A. We'll be offering a $10 bonus if you bet over $100 through the app on Fairgrounds today. What else do we have, Justin? We have Belmont Stakes tickets. They'll be going on sale February 6th. That's this coming Thursday. So get in line, get those Belmont Stakes tickets. Always a fun day of racing. So many great races and so much to look forward to that day. Don't just wait and say, oh, I only want to go if there's a Triple Crown, because it's a fabulous day of racing, and get the good seats while you can. Also, the first show of our races, we'll be covering the races, a lot of races. Tampa Bay, I think Sam Davis next week. I'm not sure, is the Tom Fool here? I don't know what we're showing, what we got in here.